Speak up in a way that we can actually connect. The entire purpose of having professional conversations is just to figure out if there's any aligned interests so that we can continue the relationship, to explore if there's a reason that we can, in fact, help each other. Another myth, when I started my career, I would go and I'd read book after book after book after book, and then I would go out and I'd try something and it'd fail, and then I'd go, oh, wrong book, and I'd go back to the store and get more books and read. But one of the common themes was that in professional relationships, it's not all about you. In actual fact, you're supposed to make the conversation all about them. Have you heard this advice? Where you go and it's, if you want to have a good conversation, you want to connect, you want to offer, how do I send you a referral? What's the best way to help you grow your business? What's all this kind of stuff? Asking question after question after question. Have you been in a conversation that is all about them? It's boring. It's not authentic. So the way I like to look at it is this, is that it's not all about them. It's not all about me. It's about finding the we. Finding the way in which we can connect and decide who we like. And you know what, with conversation, figure out your 5 favorite topics. If you throw up a conversation and they don't respond, and after 3 times of trying something and you don't have a natural inclination in a conversation going back and forth, maybe you guys just don't connect. Just because they're on your prospect list doesn't mean that you should continue the relationship or try to push a marshmallow into a piggy bank. We need to speak up, and sometimes it's about having the courage to speak up. A turning point in my life, I already mentioned Angus, who brought me in and helped introduce me to people and go out. And actually, is Carol Kehoe in this room today? Oh, darn. Does anybody know Carol? She's fairly new to your community. It's wonderful. Well, she used to be in London, and she used to write this column called The People You Know. And it was my very first media coverage. I was so proud, and I thought it was great. And at the time, I was raising money for the Salvation Army. It was about $2.5 million for the annual Shield campaign, and I was the Red Shield, and I was just part of a team who did that. And one of my roles was to be sure that we got a lot of media coverage, and Carol was fantastic at doing that. Well, there I am, I'm sitting at my desk on a Monday morning, and I hear the news. Carol has decided to resign from the column. Gasp. What are we gonna do? My boss says, call your contact over at the paper, and so I do. I call, and my boss comes into my office, and she said, well, what did he say? And I'm like, oh, it's great, we can get some coverage. But you know what, it was so funny because he actually asked me if I wanted to take over the column. And I laughed, and she goes, well, what did you say? And I said, no, wasn't the point of the call. And she said, but aren't you the person who told me that you're always gonna talk yourself into opportunity, not talk yourself out? Wasn't that an opportunity? And I'm like, oh, was it? Okay. Later, I picked up the phone and I called David back. And I said, David, actually, yes, I do. And he said, well, actually, I was joking, but you've got the personality for it. Can you write? Oh, of course I can write. I've just written an email. He said, well, I said, you know what, Allie, I'll put in a good word for you, but you're on your own. You know, you should probably give the editor-in-chief a call and let him know you're interested. So I hung up the phone with David, and I called Paul Burton, and I left him a voicemail, and I said, Paul, it's Allison Graham calling. Listen, I know that you and I haven't had a chance to meet yet, but I understand that Carol is leaving the column, and if you don't mind, I'm happy to take it over for her. So what I'm going to do when I get home tonight, I'm going to write you a mock column, and I'm looking at the calendar. I think it's probably a bit too tight to make it happen for this Friday, but I know we can make it all come together for next Friday. Why don't you give me a call back? My name again, by the way, Allison Graham, 519-851-9275, click. 10 minutes changed my life. Now, what if I would have listened to what I should have listened to? The little voice inside my head that said, Allison, hundreds of people might be going for this column. You've never written professionally. You are absolutely unqualified. 3 years ago, you were working as a receptionist and a bartender. You don't know enough people to do this. All of the reasons why I should have talked myself out. What are you talking yourself out of?